With wind gusts up to 80 miles per hour, San Diego County firefighters are on alert. The fire danger this week as Santa Ana system moves through.
So now it's gotten to the next level. I mean, these people doesn't look like they're going to walk away.
Could the failed bid for Qualcomm be turning into a hostile takeover attempt? The move that could shake up the future of one of San Diego's biggest companies.
Everybody likes so encouraging, and you're always moving forward, never backward.
And how the growth of a City Heights coffee stand is serving refugees living in San Diego. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. It's a dangerous week for San Diego County when it comes to the threat of wildfires. Santa Ana winds picked up today. San Diego County firefighters are bracing for the strongest winds of the year. The region will remain under high fire danger through at least Friday. CAL FIRE spokesman Isaac Sanchez says a small spark could result in rapid fire growth. He's urging the public to get ready.
The defensible space clearance that we talk about, all year long anymore. Of course, the evacuation plans that they need to have for themselves. The time to figure out what you're going to need in the event of evacuation is not when the evacuation order comes. It's now.
Sanchez says they've increased staffing and equipment and they're ready to respond quickly. SDG&E officials say they'll be calling customers in wind-prone areas to alert them of the possibility of power outages related to high winds. Other agencies are also stepping up their presence. That includes San Diego Fire Rescue with extra engines and aircraft available. San Diego Gas and Electric will also have extra personnel this week. Jeff Cornish has a closer look at the high wind warning.
We're very concerned about damaging wind and fire danger across Southern California as we move into the middle of the week. So the concerns are not just Tuesday, but also Wednesday and Thursday, where there will be some very significant winds that race offshore. It's an issue for us in the San Diego area, also into the Los Angeles basin to our north, northwest. We do have the potential for gusts that may peak at 60, 70, or possibly even 80 miles per hour through some of the canyons and passes. With that said, there's also very low humidity, so we're often concerned about fire danger when we get this kind of a recipe. And there is great concern about fire danger, so this is not the time to be careless with fires or anything of that nature. Campfires, not a good idea with this kind of a situation. There will also be potential for some travel disruptions with these gusty winds, especially for air travel. And there may even be some power outages with locally damaging wind, possibly bringing a few trees and power lines down. Futurecast is showing the sustained winds. We're going to press pause at around 6 a.m. Tuesday morning, and you can see there are spots where we may see sustained winds of 30 to 40 miles per hour just east, a couple dozen miles east and northeast of the city. And we will see gusts of at least twice that. Sustained winds still near 30 miles per hour in some areas not far from the city as we step into Wednesday morning. With that said, red flag warnings do continue. We will have more on this with our next weather update in a few minutes.
The Singapore-based company attempting a hostile takeover of Qualcomm isn't giving up. Broadcom has nominated 11 people to serve on Qualcomm's board of directors. Shareholders will have to decide whether to stick with Qualcomm's board members or choose Broadcom's. San Diego State University finance professor Dr. Nikhil Varaya says it comes down to the shareholders.
They want to challenge the board, and between now and March, if they up the stock price even more or up the offer price, that'll probably put more pressure on the board. Because at the end of the day, it'll be the stockholders who will go along or not go along with this deal. So the challenge for Qualcomm is to convince the stockholders that, hey, wait, because if we continue with the company, the stock price could be much higher going forward.
The results of the shareholder vote will be announced in March and could pave the way for new board members to approve a potential deal. Qualcomm recently turned down a $103 billion offer. This year, 3 of the 4 emergency winter shelters in North County have become year-round. As KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John reports, that doubles the amount of people they can help. But the numbers keep rising.
On any one night, more than 2,000 people in San Diego's North County are homeless, according to last year's point-in-time count by the Regional Task Force on the Homeless. North County has a network of agencies, the Alliance for Regional Solutions, and Greg Angel is the president. He says instead of opening winter shelters, the emergency beds in Escondido, Vista, and Carlsbad are now open year-round.
This last year, 3 of the winter shelters began operating year-round. And so we went from serving 538 individuals to serving 1,031 individuals over the course of a year. And so as a region, this last year in North County, we successfully ended homelessness for 546 people through that shelter, which is actually more people than the entire system even served the previous year.
Bread of Life in Oceanside distributes food twice a month from San Diego's food banks. It also has 50 winter shelter beds, a dormitory for men and a dormitory for women. This shelter opened in November, a month early this year, thanks to a grant from the city of Oceanside, and it's full with a waiting list. Pastor Alan Lauer of Bread of Life says winter is still the worst time for the homeless.
We've had people die out in the bushes here. Because just being out in the elements, the rain when it does rain, or cold, or the combination of the two, does tend to create fatalities.
Lauer says he'd like to stay open year-round, especially for people who come out of hospital and have nowhere to go home to. The Alliance for Regional Solutions collects about $200,000 a year from North County cities, but Angel says it costs $1.5 million to operate the network of shelters. How effective are they? He says about 50% of those who go through their programs do find permanent housing after they leave the shelter, and of those, 90% are still housed a year later. Allison St. John, KPBS News.
From transportation to the environment, San Diego County is putting together some long-term goals. A big part of that is taking suggestions from the public on how the county will likely grow over the next 30 years. KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman has the story.
Here inside this conference room at Caltrans in Old Town, people are helping plan for San Diego's future. Monday, Sandag hosted the first of 10 planned public workshops, part of an update to its regional plan. Sandag is required to modify the regional plan every 4 years. This process requires public involvement with workshops like this. During Monday's workshop, people had discussions on topics like transportation and the environment. One of those people was Maria Cortez. She came to the meeting from City Heights and believed public transportation has improved downtown, but not in the North County.
The bus stops that they do have are far and in between. We're dropped off at the station or at the bus stop, and where do we go? How do we get there? Unless you get an Uber, or because I don't do Ubers, unless you have other modes of transportation, like a friend to come and pick you up, or a taxi, and there goes more money. It's really hard and difficult.
Now, Sandag says they expect to have at least 9 more of these public workshops before the 2019 plan is introduced. And if you can't make it to one of these, you can go to sdforward.com and fill out a survey there. Here in Old Town, Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
The San Diego City Council voted unanimously today to approve a law that should make the city's business transactions more transparent. A series of iNews Source investigative reports prompted the change. Here's iNews Source reporter Brad Racino with details.
In 1992, San Diegans voted overwhelmingly in favor of a new law that required people and companies doing business with the city to disclose who they actually are, who the people are behind the company name. This law came about after the city almost entered into a $47 million real estate deal with an alleged mobster. Our investigation found that over the past 25 years, the law has been largely unenforced. San Diego has more than $3 billion in contracts with more than 1,000 private companies, yet it rarely knows the financial interests behind them. The reason, according to city officials that we've interviewed, was that the language of the law, the actual wording, was so vague that it was largely unenforceable. The way it was written could be interpreted as saying even if the city purchased a paperclip, it would need to know who was behind the company that sold that paperclip. Well, after 16 months reporting on this topic, iNewsSource can say the City Council today finally cleared up that vague language through a new ordinance. That means we'll all soon be able to know who is behind all major purchases and contracts, sales, franchises, leases, and other transactions related to city spending. I should make clear that today's vote did not change the city charter, where the original law lives. Instead, this new law is a placeholder. San Diegans will still be asked to clear up the original charter language with a vote in November 2018. For KPBS, I'm iNewsSource reporter Brad Racino.
For more on the topic, viewers can go to inewssource.org/225. iNewsSource is an independently funded nonprofit partner of KPBS. The owners of a startup coffee business in City Heights want to make the jump from an outdoor stand to a brick-and-mortar storefront. As KPBS reporter Tara Minto explains, their goal is not just to serve more customers, but to serve more employees.
I used to have this small cup of coffee like this size, and I could not finish it.
Recently arrived refugee Batel Moyeta shows how her coffee tastes have changed while working at the City Heights Coffee House.
After some months, I promoted myself to this cup.
But since starting the job in March, she says she's gained more than just a love of caffeine. That's because employment at the nonprofit coffee cart offers not only a job, but also mentoring and life development classes, from finance to networking. Plus, Moyeta says her boss encouraged her to get a driver's license and set goals.
We have a check-in every month and a half. She always asks, what have you achieved within the month and a half?
We're currently fundraising to go into a storefront.
Co-founder Sterling Tran says moving to a storefront would allow them to more than double the employees they're serving from 3 to 8. She says the focus is on hiring people who face barriers to employment and help them achieve their goals.
Maybe they have a record or they're newly arrived to America and have no work experience, or we focus on kids that come out of juvenile hall and have not as many opportunities to get a job. And we also focus on the homeless population.
Tran says with a storefront fundraising campaign, they also plan to provide the classes and mentoring component to another 24 people free of charge. For Moyeta, the program has put her on a path to community college. She says Tran is helping her enroll and apply for financial aid.
Everybody so encouraging, and you're always moving forward, never backward.
The coffee house is now seeking private investors, but hopes to launch a public campaign in the spring. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
I'm Miles O'Brien. Tonight on the NewsHour, President Trump pushes back on the FBI as the probe into Russian meddling continues. Coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
President Trump will be allowed to enforce his latest travel ban. Today's Supreme Court decision is not a ruling on the merits of the case. It simply allows the ban to remain in effect as it moves through the court system. A formal ruling from the Supreme Court could come in June. The Trump administration's revised travel ban targets 8 nations, 6 of those with majority Muslim populations, including Chad, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen. Tomorrow, same-sex marriage rights and freedom of religion collide at the U.S. Supreme Court. As Peter Banda explains, justices will eventually decide if a baker was within his rights to refuse service for a gay wedding.
David Mullins and Charlie Craig celebrated their 5th wedding anniversary. But they have another important date coming up, one before the U.S. Supreme Court.
So this case is not about a cake. It's not about a baker. It's not about artistic freedom. It's about us being able to be free to be treated, to be treated equally in the public realm.
Yes, it's about basic access to public life.
Yeah.
In July 2012, the couple walked into Masterpiece Cake Shop to pick out a wedding cake. They had gotten married in Massachusetts. The cake was for a reception in Denver.
It was definitely not a wild cake on the outside. We just wanted something classy.
Bakery owner Jack Phillips unapologetically told them he wouldn't sell them a wedding cake.
Because I feel I'm also participating in the cake. I'm participating in the wedding by making the cake. And in a same-sex wedding, I can't participate in that because it goes against my faith.
Phillips was judged through multiple phases of litigation to have violated Colorado's anti-discrimination law.
I want to pray, Lord, that you would pour out your Spirit upon
At a recent rally, Phillips, who has been embraced by conservative politicians and religious institutions, said it's not about the person making the request, but about expression.
Every American should be free to choose which art they create and which art they won't create, without fear of being unjustly punished by the government.
Constitutional law professor Scott Moss compares the case with one in 1968, where a South Carolina barbecue restaurant owner argued that mixing races in his dining room violated his religious beliefs.
Right, the court didn't really give any serious reception to that argument because the view of the court at the time was that if your religious objections let you get an exemption from the anti-discrimination laws, then literally anyone can decline to comply with the anti-discrimination laws by claiming that this is his or her understanding of how God wants the world to be.
That's what LGBT rights advocates worry about, that a ruling in Phillips's favor would open the door to discrimination by a wide range of business owners and entrepreneurs.
Jack, we're praying for you.
The opposing sides do agree on one thing. The case is not about a wedding cake. Peter Banda, Associated Press, Denver.
Facebook is taking steps to protect kids from online predators. Today, it launched a new version of Messenger. Messenger Kids is designed for users 13 and younger. Parents can download the app and create profiles for their children. Then the parents can approve friends and family who can text and video chat. The app is separate from the main Messenger app because kids younger than 13 are still not able to sign up for Facebook. 3D printers have taken over the San Diego Convention Center. KPBS video journalist Katie Shulov takes us inside to get some of the latest innovations.
We're actually printing my face right now.
Go Engineers Devin Phillipson sells high-end 3D printers that range from $10,000 to $500,000. His company makes printers that can customize everything from cars to prosthetics.
With what's been going on in our military for a long time, there are a lot of people that are in need of, arms, legs, and they can customize these to, there's a little boy. I saw that he got a prosthetic that looked like Iron Man, and he was so thrilled, like his favorite comic book character, and now his arm is like Iron Man.
Other exhibitors were showing off 3D printed tooth fillings, tools, toys and decorative pieces, sunglasses, even soles for shoes. Some had different colorful materials being developed for use in the printers. There was even a handheld 3D printing pen. More than 1,000 people are expected to attend the expo, which goes through Tuesday. Katie Shulov, KPBS News.
San Diego got a peek today at the future of rising ocean levels. It was visible today thanks to a yearly phenomenon known as king tides. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson got an aerial tour early this morning.
Coastal tides typically hit a yearly peak in San Diego in the winter, and those high ocean levels foretell what's coming as climate warms. Stephanie Seekich-Quinn works with Surfrider Foundation. She says people need to become comfortable with the idea that change is coming.
What infrastructure will be in harm's way, whether it's 50 years or 100 years down the road?
Seekich-Quinn says it's easy to see how higher ocean levels pushed up against the coast. The Tijuana estuary's river mouth was wider than normal. Marshland that normally dominates the valley was swollen with water as the ocean applied pressure. Seekich-Quinn says water also assaulted the cliffs further north.
When you looked at the area off of La Jolla, it's a very dynamic area for the bathymetry of the coastline, and so you've got to really see what the inundation of those king tides were, especially juxtaposed to all of that infrastructure.
Carlsbad City Council member Corey Schumacher noticed how the high sea levels affected areas differently. She says people may be the biggest challenge to coping with sea level rise.
As we move forward and try to manage this, the key component of it is the relationship that we have with our landowners in planning forward and ensuring that we're working together to come up with the best positive outcome, because we can't stop the ocean.
And the waves driven by these king tides are buffeting the coastline all up and down San Diego County today. And it turns out that sand may actually be one of the best strategies to protecting the coastline. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
It's not the heat, but the wind. That's a big problem with the latest Santa Ana moving in. Here's Jeff Cornish with the forecast.
As we've been discussing, we're very concerned about fire danger and a gusty, pretty vicious wind channeling through the canyons and passes, pushing offshore. And there's potential for isolated gusts to 70 miles per hour through midweek in some of the canyons and passes. And there's potential on Thursday for maybe even an isolated gust or two to 80 miles per hour. So that's a very significant concern. Red flag warnings are in effect, as we mentioned earlier. This is a heads up that fire danger is high. We have the combination of not just the wind, but also low humidity, and that's a dangerous setup. So red flag warnings are in effect from the international border all the way up into the Los Angeles basin. That obviously includes us in and around La Jolla and San Diego. The satellite radar does show some changes, big change from the past couple of weeks when we've had frequent Pacific storms making landfall in the northwestern U.S. It's quieter. It's nice up I-5, about a day's drive into Oregon and Washington. Tonight, 50 degrees for your low, partly cloudy out there, and we're looking at lows tonight down to around 41 in Ramona. You can see the indication of some strong winds through the canyons and passes. Colder tonight into Mount Laguna at 34 there. We're looking at a chilly setup with that dry wind racing offshore through Tuesday. Strong high pressure is helping to drive this across the area near Salt Lake City. That's where it's centered. So we're still very windy into the day tomorrow, and highs will be around 71 in San Diego, Oceanside 73. Fire danger a big concern. Borrego Springs 69 for your high. So the coastal regions are looking at a warm up into Thursday, 79 with that offshore wind really warming us up. We'll get a little less warm, reluctant to say cooler though, Friday and Saturday. Inland areas warm up into the low 80s Friday and Saturday. Lots of sunshine, no low clouds with this setup. Windy, mountain passes, really windy, and we're going to get into the upper 50s by Friday and Saturday. And the deserts, sunny and very breezy, windy as well. I'm Jeff Cornish for KPBS News.
Storm chasing is a dangerous science, and for one man, it's an art. Photographer filmmaker Stephen Locke shared some of his most dramatic images he captured across America with PBS station KCPT in Kansas City.
Storms, of course, are very dramatic and very exciting, especially on the Great Plains. Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, those center states right through the middle of the country. These have the strongest storms in the world. Well, the season is generally springtime into early summer. That's when the atmosphere is most volatile and capable of producing supercell thunderstorms. The first thing I do when I get up in the morning is forecast. There's some basic data that I look at. I try to give myself a sense of what the atmosphere looks like 10 days out, 5 days out, 3 days out. Severe storm forecasting is just a tool to get you into close proximity of the storm. Ultimately, my purpose in being there is art.
But I bet you this may be the storm that moves into Kansas. Relax, relax. Don't grip the wheel, you know. It's a little tense.
When you're in chase mode and you're watching these storms develop, you're in a hurry. A lot of times I don't get to fully enjoy the storm till later on when I look at those images or look at Stephen's time lapse.
You have to work quickly, and it is difficult to compose the image quickly, particularly because you're driving into a landscape that you've never looked at before. You don't know what's over the next horizon, and the storm is evolving rapidly, and so you have to jump out now and make it happen.
Scud rising everywhere. Yeah. So this is the updraft region of the storm.
Sometimes I'm lucky, you know, I've been oftentimes looking for a spot to shoot a storm, and then there'll just be this cute little abandoned building. A gift from the universe that I pull up and put that into my shot. I like for myself and for my viewers to see how the storm evolves. I want people to be able to look at my time-lapse movies and look at that and say, yeah, I can see how a supercell moves.
There are chases we go on where You know, it might be a cap bust. You know, the storms just don't develop. Everything looks good, the ingredients are there. Sometimes it just doesn't happen, but when it does, it's very rewarding. Oh, wow, check that out. That actually looks really nice. There's a lot of work in what Stephen does. It's amazing to watch him set up 2-3 cameras. You know, he's got a few different things he uses and gets his tripods out.
I was initially disappointed in the structure of that storm, and at the time I was shooting it, I really didn't feel good about what I had, but when I got back and looked at the images and the time lapse on the computer screen, I actually was pretty impressed with the quality of the light coming from the sunset. We had that warm alpenglow, that warm, sweet light, and the storm has got enough movement and enough gorgeous light that I think it's actually a nice time lapse. For years, I had always wanted to shoot a shelf cloud coming over the downtown area. So for many years, I've been running down to Liberty Memorial to shoot storms coming over the city. I remember wondering, should I go, should I not go? And it turned out to be a really beautiful storm.
You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.